Hello everyone, it's Wednesday, June 24th. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for joining me here for 3 News Now, where we give you your top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. First up, we're starting with some big national news today. An appeals court has confirmed the dismissal of the case against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. This is even though Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to prosecutors in special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. This appellate decision is upholding the Justice Department's decision to abandon the case. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia confirmed the dismissal of the case against Flynn in a 2-1 ruling today. Now, the reason this ended up in appeals court is because U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan declined to immediately dismiss the case. Instead, Sullivan said that he wanted to evaluate on his own the department's unusual dismissal request. So what's happening here is the Justice Department is giving Michael Flynn a big break here. So if you remember, Flynn admitted to lying to the FBI about conversations that he had with Russia's then ambassador to the United States. That was back in early 2017, back before President Donald Trump even had taken office, but had already been elected. He was the president-elect at that point. So lots of complexity here, but the plea deal kept Flynn out of potential trouble for possible undisclosed foreign lobbying. So that was sort of swept off the table with his agreement to plead guilty to the lying. And it also may have involved getting rid of potential charges for his son, Michael G. Flynn, also related possibly to that lobbying. And at that point of the guilty plea, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn also agreed to cooperate with the government. So the reason we ended up here is because in 2018, the judge delayed Flynn's sentencing, and that allowed him time to replace his attorneys and stop working with the government, stop cooperating with the government. So his new legal team fought for FBI memos about his interview, and those FBI memos raised the possibility that the FBI had actually entrapped him. That was what was discussed when it came to the possibility of dismissing the case. And also, Flynn was actually seeking to take back that guilty plea. In the middle of all of that, the Department of Justice just decided to drop the case, and they said in doing so that Flynn's false statements to investigators weren't, quote, material to any bona fide investigation. This is definitely highly unusual. Attorney General William Barr said in an interview with CBS News last week, this is what he said, this is a quote from Barr: "People sometimes plead to things that turn out not to be crimes, and the Department of Justice is not persuaded that this was material to any legitimate counterintelligence investigation, so it was not a crime." So Michael Flynn getting a big break, that case officially dismissed today thanks to that ruling from the appellate court. Here in Northeast Ohio, we're celebrating the life of longtime John Carroll Sports Information Director Chris WENZLER. WENZLER died on Tuesday following a longtime cancer diagnosis. It was about 2.5 years ago that he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and he was 52 years old. WENZLER had been the sports information director at John Carroll University since shortly after he graduated back in 1990. This is what JCU had to say about WENZLER. His contributions to John Carroll pale in comparison to his role as a mentor to hundreds of student workers who count him as a teacher, advocate, confidant, and friend. WENZLER is survived by his wife Melissa and his 2 children Madeline and Oliver, and our hearts go out to WENZLER's family and everyone who spent time with him at John Carroll University. We're thinking of you today. In New York City, the marathon has been officially canceled thanks to COVID-19. It was scheduled for November 1st, but it was canceled today because of the pandemic. It is the world's largest marathon, and New York Roadrunners announced today, which is the organization that puts on the marathon, that after talking with the mayor, there were just too many health and safety concerns for runners, volunteers, spectators, and others, so they decided just to do away with it this year, and they hope to come back next year. So last year's marathon, by the way, had a world record 53,640 finishers. That is incredible. So people who were registered for the 2020 race, which again was supposed to happen on November 1st, they'll be offered a full refund of their entry fee. or they can have guaranteed entry to either the 2021, 2022, or 2023 New York City marathons. As of now, the 2021 New York City Marathon has been scheduled for November 7th, 2021. So a little bit over a year and a couple months away for that. Speaking of coronavirus, let's give you a rundown of where the cases here in Ohio stand as of yesterday at 2 p.m. when we got those new numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health. The total number of confirmed cases is now 46,127. That's as of 2 p.m. yesterday. Now, yesterday when we got these numbers, when we compare them to the previous day, which was Monday, new cases were down but still high. Deaths were up, hospitalizations were up quite a bit, and ICU admissions were also up. Yesterday, we saw 590 new cases of COVID-19 reported here in the state of Ohio. That's down from Monday, when we saw a big spike of 729 new cases. And last week on Thursday, we saw 700 new cases. So between Thursday and Monday, those cases were in the 600 range, in the 500 range, and then yesterday, we were back in the high 500 range, almost at 600, with 590 new cases. The total number of deaths related to COVID-19 in the state of Ohio is now 2,735. That's with 31 new cases reported yesterday, which is up quite a bit from Monday when there were 4 new cases reported, and Sunday when there were 3 new deaths reported. We're talking about deaths right now. The total number of hospitalizations related to COVID-19 in the state of Ohio is now 7,379. That is after 87 new hospitalizations reported on Tuesday, which is up from 50 new hospitalizations reported on Monday. In terms of the ICU admissions in Ohio, the total number is now 1,876. That's after 24 new ICU admissions reported yesterday on Tuesday, and there were 8 new ICU admissions reported on Monday, and 11 new ICU admissions reported on Sunday. Now, in just a moment here, we'll be bringing in our 3 News sports analyst, Ben Axelrod. The big news that everyone's talking about is the fact that Major League Baseball is back. They have come to an agreement, so he's going to be joining us here shortly as soon as he joins our live stream here to talk about what that means, when they'll be back in training, when they'll be back on the field, exactly what that play is going to look like. Now, I can tell you, the players are excited. The pitchers were incredibly excited before the final deal was even finalized here related to Major League Baseball getting back to playing. And we have Ben joining us now, so let's get him in here. We're our sports analyst, Ben Axelrod. We're just waiting for him to join us here. Very excited to have Ben joining us again for the first time. There he is. Hello, Ben.
Hi.
It has been quite a while since we've seen you here on our 3 News Now update, so it is great to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. A little different than the turntable back at the station.
I am going to have to disconnect my mic to make this work because it's letting me hear you if I don't. So, Ben, are you there?
I'm here.
There you are. I knew I would be able to hear you if I did that. So let me just move this back so that people can see my face as well as yours. So we are here to talk about Major League Baseball back here in Cleveland, and it's actually going to be in Cleveland. How about that?
Yeah, a little bit different than I think what we all kind of first thought we'd see a couple of months ago when they were mapping out plans and mapping out proposals. Kind of the predominant one that was gaining a lot of attention was having the bubble sites like we're going to see in the NBA in Orlando next month. And we thought Arizona, Florida, and Texas, and those are actually the numbers that are seeing spikes right now. But yeah, they're going to be playing empty stadium games. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of games within the division and then a lot of games interleague. So the Indians will be playing teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Reds, the Milwaukee Brewers, teams in the NL Central as well. So we're not going to see, them playing teams on the West Coast or teams on the East Coast even. It's going to be a lot of games between the Indians and their kind of Midwest counterparts, both in the American League and the National League.
Now, when do we expect the teams to get back to training?
July 1st, that's the spring training 2.0 date. Even though it's going to be happening in the middle of July, it's still called spring training, but that's when they're going to be getting back to baseball activity. So less than a week now at this point. And then July 24th, that looks like the date for when they'll be back on the field playing games against other teams and starting up that 60-game schedule. So a little less than a month away here. It's all going to move pretty quickly.
Now, I know a sticking point, we had talked about this before, for the players was whether they were going to get a full prorated salary. So is that something that they were able to make happen?
So they're getting their full prorated salaries. That's basically why this happened. Is they had an agreement dating back to March 26th, the Major League Baseball, the owners, the teams, that they could set a schedule for any amount of time so long as the players were paid their full prorated salary. So these negotiations, that was a big sticking point, was for there to be a longer season than 60 games. The players wanted a longer season than 60 games. They wanted to get paid for more than 60 games. Their last proposal was for 70 games. The owners wanted them to give back a percentage of those salaries. There were negotiations on other aspects, such as, an expanded playoffs and protections if they can't finish the postseason due to a second wave of the coronavirus. But basically what happened was negotiations totally broke down. They were at a standstill. And so the owners used their ability to set a schedule for any amount of time. They set it for 60 games, and that's what they did. But in order to do that, they have to pay their players their full prorated salaries as well. So this wasn't really them coming to terms on an agreement. I mean, they agreed on July 1st being the spring training date, and they agreed on health and safety protocols. But as far as other concessions, I mean, this was kind of the owners using their last resort to force a season to happen. And in order to do that, they have to pay the players their full prorated salaries.
And speaking of them forcing the season to happen, you said there's going to be about 60 games. That's about a third of a regular season. So they're already getting paid only about a third, right, of what they would normally get paid in a regular season.
Yep, that's right. And that's, when they were negotiating all this, there were talks of an advance on salaries. So guys would be getting their money a little bit earlier than they typically would. And basically when negotiations broke down, all that went away. But yeah, I mean, guys making multi-million-dollar contracts, they'll obviously be fine from a financial standpoint, but there are a lot of, players, who are just breaking into the major leagues on relatively smaller contracts now, who are only going to be getting a third of that salary. There's a handful of guys who are now going to be making less than $100,000 for this season. So definitely, from a financial standpoint for some of these players, and especially the younger guys, because of baseball salary structure, definitely a bigger financial hit for them with the way this all shook out.
And also just a really short season when it comes to thinking about how we'll look at this in the future for records and stats, and how this season will just kind of play into the bigger Major League Baseball story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting aspects as far as this only being a 60-game schedule. I know Mike Clevenger, the Cleveland Indians pitcher, he talked about that, I think, back in April, that he didn't like the idea of playing this super short season because he felt like whoever won the World Series was going to automatically have an asterisk by their name. It really, the Indians have been a team that gets off to some slow starts and finds their footing around June and July. They're not going to be able to get off to a slow start just because – you think about 30 games now, that's, in baseball, that's about a month. Now that's half of your season. The Washington Nationals, who won last year's World Series, had the regular season ended after 60 games. They wouldn't have even made the playoffs. And then for the Indians, you and I have talked a lot about Francisco Lindor and whether or not the Indians can trade him. And the trade deadline was looking like, kind of a fork in the road moment for them this season. They're still going to have a trade deadline. I think it's going to be August 31st. For the Indians, that's going to be about a month into their season. They're going to have to see where they are at a 30-game stretch to see whether or not they think they're going to make the postseason, whether or not they want to hold on to Francisco Lindor, or whether or not this is going to be the time where they cut bait with really their franchise player. So definitely in terms of teams impacted by all this, the Indians are either at or near the top of the list.
And they have also said, too, it was a big sticking point. They wanted to make sure they had the World Series in October in order to avoid the second wave of COVID-19. Not that any of us know when that's coming. Right. We do know that the health officials are saying we're still in the first wave right now. But There is an option too, I believe I saw, for some players to opt out if they're high risk for COVID-19 and still get paid. Is that right?
That's right, and that affects the Indians as well. Carlos Carrasco, who they were going to be counting on as probably their number 3 pitcher. I mean, a key pitcher in their rotation. He's obviously coming off of last year's leukemia diagnosis and recovery, but that for a lot of people, that compromises your immune system and some of the medication you have to take. I mean, I think he would be right at the top of what you would consider high risk. I know guys who have spouses who are pregnant, that they've worked out some maternity leave type of stuff as far as how long they can be gone for compared to what it would be like during a regular season. But, they have this agreement, but you look at the case numbers, especially in the South right now, down in Florida. I saw they had another big day as far as a COVID-19 spike. I think, with baseball now that has an agreement, and basketball, the NBA, they have an agreement. A lot of this is going to be touch and go. A lot of them, are kind of playing this by ear and kind of seeing, taking it day by day. A lot of this could change, but at the very least, baseball does have that agreement now, which they didn't have previously. So at least they have something they're working toward in terms of a season. But yeah, you mentioned the World Series. That's one thing from the owner's side that always kind of did make sense about this, was they wanted to end the regular season at the end of September like they always did. And they wanted to have the World Series around the same time they always do. And just from what we know about this, yeah, it certainly makes sense to play this all out while the weather is as warm as possible, compared to, getting into those colder months in November and December.
Sure. Well, I am sure the team is excited to be doing some playing. The players are excited. We're all very excited.
I'm excited to be talking baseball again, so we have that.
And I don't know if you can see the comments, Ben, but people are very excited to have you back here on 3 News Now. I saw at least someone who was like, Axelrod, yay!
Good.
We're happy to have you back, and we'll be happy to have lots more conversations as that season gets underway with you here. Thanks, Ben. We appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. All right, we are going to say goodbye to Ben, and we've got one more story for you here that we're going to end things on a positive note for you. We want to say a big congratulations to our anchor, SARA Shookman. Her little girl, baby Isla, made her debut on Front Row yesterday with Jimmy Donovan. Of course, SARA typically hosts Front Row with Jimmy Donovan. Our Laura Queso, our 6 p.m. anchor, has been filling in for SARA while she's been away on her maternity leave. And last night we saw her again on Front Row with Jimmy with little Isla. And this was her debut on WKYC on Channel 3. Isla Elizabeth Scott DeFranco joined SARA Shookman and her husband Angelo just about a month ago. She was born on Friday, May 15th. She weighed 8 pounds, 7 ounces, and she measured 21¼ inches long. And she shared how they came to the name of baby Isla when she was on Front Row with Jimmy Donovan. Now, SARA and Angelo were surprised by the gender. They didn't know baby Isla would be a girl until she joined them on May 15th. So they actually went into it with 4 names, 2 for a boy and 2 for a girl. And they said when they saw her, they knew that Isla was right, and Isla means island. SARA said it sounds good with her Italian last name. It certainly does. Isla DeFranco just rolls off the tongue beautifully. So a big congratulations again to them. They said their bedtime now is about 8:45 p.m. these days for SARA, Angelo, and baby Isla. And I gotta say, that actually sounds pretty good. Of course, that would mean I would probably have to get up a lot earlier, and that probably doesn't sound so great. All right, that is it for your 3 News Now early update. We'll be back here at 2 p.m. as soon as we get those updated numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health. Everyone enjoy the rest of your morning and your early afternoon. I'll see you back here shortly. I'm Stephanie Haney.